So, on average, how long do you guys think you're on your phone per day? Go ahead. Like cumulatively.
Maybe like 3 hours.
Let's go down. 5.
4.5.
Go ahead.
7.
7. 2 hours.
I say about 3.
Okay. So the average to some studies is 3 hours. So if you do the math, that's over 1,000 hours per year, and then it amounts to 11 years in your life. That's how. All right. So we see here. This is graph shows 1 to 2 hours, 0 to 1, 1 to 2, etc. And the amount of people. So 25% is. So that's where kind of the mean is. This is shown in a book called Irresistible by Adam Adler, which is the rise of technology and the business of keeping us hooked. There's this new thing that psychologists have learned. It's called being behaviorally addicted to something. We typically just think that you're addicted to substances or whatever it may be, but a lot of us are actually behaviorally addicted to our phones, and it's just as clinically valid. This is kind of a comical illustration, but it actually, as we'll learn it in a little bit, there's some truth to this. Does anyone want to guess what nomophobia might mean? It's connected to this. It's a new term.
It's not being around your phone.
Exactly. So, and there's statistics tell us that in 2020, so in a few years, 93% of 18 to 49-year-olds in the whole world will have access to the internet, and that amounts to 8 billion people. So we learn on this graph right here, it says the average person checks their phone 110 times per day. 12% use their phone in the showers, 40 on the toilet, 56 check before they go to sleep. 1 in 5 people between 18 and 34 use their phone while being intimate with another person. 75% check their phone after sleep. 50%, these are the nomophobics, feel uneasy when they leave their phones at home. And this 26% of car accidents are caused by phone usage. And lastly, this number seems low to me. 75% admit they've actually texted and driven before. So, so I'm going to discuss the potential ramifications of phones and technology that are becoming ever enmeshed and integral into our cultural norms as well as our way of life. I've done extensive research actually on this in a prior class, and I do have a unique perspective because I've been on one side of it, the behavior addicted part of that, but I've also been on the other side, kind of where I'm at now. And I believe that, by becoming so engrossed and addicted to our phones and what they can do, it actually can harm our relationships, it can interfere with our work in school and compromise our values. So right here, I'm just going to illustrate the problem that this can be, the cause of it, and some alternative ways we can use our phones to become better people. So the proliferation of phones and the internet, this has been really socially accepted, but it threatens our social intelligence and our social bonds that we have with one another. Phone calls and phone use actually does lead to loneliness. And this is reported by Borjin and Namki Park, they're both professors in South Korea, and they did a study on mobile voice communication and loneliness. This is actually most evident with people who have many friends. So if you have a lot of friends and you communicate them with your phone, people will report that they actually feel more lonely. And we'll kind of address why that is. The draw of phone activity, it threatens being present, and it kind of encourages you to be distracted when you're among your family, your friends, or otherwise. Andrew Przybylski, who's an experimental psychologist at Oxford, and Netta Weinstein, who's a professor at the University of Ethics, their findings in Can You Connect With Me Now, the presence of mobile technology on face-to-face conversation, they did 2 studies. So in the first study, there was a group, it was 74 participants, 22 years old was the average age. In situation A, they had no phone. In situation B, they did have a phone. And they talked some mildly intimate content about something interesting that happened with them. And in situation B, when there was a phone, the people who were participants in this reported lower relationship quality and less closeness with their talking partner. Then in the second group, similar demographics. Group 1, they just talked about a casual topic. there wasn't really much of an impact when you had your phone out. But in group 2, they talked about something meaningful and personal to them. And the interrupting effect inhibited the development of interpersonal closeness, trust, and perceived understanding. So we see from this graph here that the turquoise is phone absent and then phone present. So let's not focus on the casual, but on important. We have lower relationship quality with the phone, lower partner trust with the phone, and lower partner empathy across the board. So in 2016, there's a magazine and a website called The Atlantic, and they studied teachers in Kentucky, and they were ambivalent, which means they have mixed feelings about phones. They can be used as an educational tool, but for teens, it's very common to use your phone not for education, but for distraction, and it actually can be counterintuitive in an educational setting. Clinical psychologist Richard Freed says, quote, high levels of smartphone use by teens often have a detrimental effect on achievement because teen phone use is dominated by entertainment and not learning. Fern Creek school principal Nathan Meyer says that when students engage with their phones or they use headphones, they disengage from their peers, and that doesn't allow them, it squanders any ability to have empathetic encounters with one another. A Kent State research project with 500 students said, and this is very relevant to you guys, that the higher your phone use on a daily basis, the lower GPAs, when they did a study on that. The National Safety Council, this is alarming as well. Phone use leads to 1.6 million crashes per year. 1 in 4 crashes are due, as we learned with the other graph, due to phone use. And cell phones used in the car is 6 times more dangerous than driving while intoxicated. And I think we're all can be guilty of that. I'm guilty of it as well. So, relationships are to people as fundamentals are to a player. So your base being sturdy is important to be a good shooter. Your upper body technique is important as well. Your hand placement is important to rotation. When you're trying to challenge a shooter contested shot, high hands are important, as we know. Being in a good defensive stance is very necessary to play good on-ball defense. Having effective post moves is necessary. You have to have good footwork to do that. So you need all those things to be a good player. Well, you need relationships to be happy and to live a meaningful life, which I think we all want. Phones are wonderfully innovative with the ways we can connect with one another nowadays, but compared to face-to-face interactions, they're limited. So we see that this is problematic. So what are the causes? So a lack of social skill actually enables you to become more addicted to your screens and to the internet. But there are benefits with phones if you use them prudently. Loneliness is defined as a lack of intimate contact by Donna Reed and Fraser Reed in their journal, Text or Talk. Feeling of loneliness make you vulnerable to what is called PIU, which is problematic internet use, as researcher R.A. Davis predicts, and this leads to negative outcomes. Jin and Park, who we've talked about before, says poor social skills lead to interactive loneliness levels. A lack of social confidence and skill, thus initiating less face-to-face conversation, preserves the melancholy. Scott Kaplan of the University of Delaware calls this a social skill deficit. He argues in a social skill account of problematic internet use, social anxiety predisposes that preference instead of in-person and real conversation. And if this is perpetuated, it can hurt your family relations, your social interactions, your academic and professional venues in those areas. So why are we so hooked? Psychiatrist Dr. Gary Small in Texting says in his book, Texting is the Brain's Latest Drug, that the act of texting is like heroin in the sense that it stimulates the dopamine part of your prefrontal cortex. So when you get a vibrate, you get a ding, there's a feedback loop that's initiated, and we get rewarded. When we start texting and using our fingers, it strengthens the motor circuitry in our brains and in our bodies, so that behavior is more easily repeatable after that. And dopamine's very, occurs, it actually really works when something unexpected happens. So if somebody likes something of yours or shares something of yours or texts you, that's kind of where dopamine's, that's its game, really. And in a study, it found that the second most addictive sound there is like a phone call or a text order. In a study of 129 people that were studied for 24/7 for 16 months. And again, this is in the prefrontal cortex. That when you text, you engage attention, emotion, judgment, and concentration. And that leads to theta waves, which are really, really uncommon when you're awake. However, with all this, phone to phone and screen to screen allow you to feel safer, more comfortable, as well as more confident because there's some sort of anonymity or there's overall control. So, and then additionally, social media allows us to share our lives with, people that we know. It allows us to stay in touch with people that are distant from us, and we can actually peek into people's lives that we might admire. So how can we move forward? Solutions. So, to lessen all this kind of intoxicating nature of phones and technology, we can have some rules and guidelines. So we can say, when I'm in bed, I'm not going to use my phone. When I'm driving, I'm not going to use my phone. When I'm with somebody else or I'm eating with somebody, I'm not going to use my phone. We can do that. We have control of that. And we can just be more disciplined. Louis Felipe Beland and Richard Murphy, in a journal, there's a technology distraction and student performance, that when schools ban mobile phone use, which I know that you wouldn't like and I wouldn't like either, it actually led to higher test scores. There's apps called Break Free and Mental that track the time that you're on your phone. And then there's other apps that probably would be really unpopular among us that don't allow you to use your phone at certain times. You can download something like that. So we can use our phone more as a tool than a toy. So these are some typical ways that people use their phone. Text messages, one, then voice and video calls, the internet, email, social networking, and so forth. So, we can use our phones with, taking notes for class, or having reminders on our calendar, or, going on YouTube, we can watch training videos. We could be texting our family or having meaningful conversations. We could listen to podcasts. There's some things out there for athletes. We could be keeping up with our friends back home, say on Facebook or Instagram, or on Snapchat. We could be emailing a professor. We could listen to music for emotional well-being. So there are some potentials. I mean, you can get things health-related, like how you're sleeping, or there's apps like that, or how many steps you're taking. You can take care of your finances on your phone. You can look about a job. You can apply for a job. You can take a class, or you can engage in some educational content. I mean, on your phone, you literally have a library. You have an encyclopedia of whatever you want. So we can use that towards our advantage. Actually, if you don't use your phone 2 hours or an hour before you go to sleep, it actually can improve how you sleep in your sleep cycles. Texting while driving, we all know that it's enforced nationwide. You get a fine, you get points on your license, which actually increases how much your insurance is, and we obviously know that it's pretty dangerous, according to drivinglaws.org. But more importantly, human connection is vital to our emotional health, and it's necessary to have reciprocal and caring relationships, which I think we all really want to have, and it's really advantageous for us. But our phone can be an impediment, as we've seen. Offline interrelations tend to be more meaningful, fulfilling, and intricate. Loneliness, Jen and Park deduced, was lower due to an inclination to have in-person exchanges and or because of face-to-face communication. The studies prove that in-person conversation actually trumps phone conversations. Even with the world becoming more tech-engrossed, social aptness and ability are still needed to be, and prudent skills to be able to develop and cultivate. And as we've learned in the phone experiment, no phone present breeds intimacy, trust, closeness, and empathy with whoever we're engaging with. So these are just a few ways that we can use our devices in a more thoughtful manner. So in conclusion, I know this has been pretty long, but we've discussed who can be vulnerable to become addicted to our phones and the like. We've discussed the potential repercussions to overt and excessive use. Countering these findings, we've explored alternatives to adopt to live a better life. In this presentation, the goal is to challenge the way we typically use our mobile devices, understanding the probable issues with the norm of ourselves and others. The psychological studies and experiments educate us on how this technological revolution is changing our society and our wiring. But as we are co-evolving with our smartphones and with the web, we have a choice on how we want to use or not use, how to engage or disengage. Just from a personal story, the way that I connected with my wife wasn't over the phone or anything like that. It was during some late night impromptu conversations where, I wasn't worried about a text message I was getting or a retweet or whatever it is, where we were able to, you see the eye contact with one another, or listen and hear the inflection, or watch body language, or see the emotion, and being able to just be absorbed and being engaged with one another. So just to finish it up, some new research found that the new attention span is what? You guys want to guess real quickly? Just throw it out. What do you think it is?
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes? What else? Give me 2 more.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? What else? 3 minutes? It's actually 8 seconds.
That's what I was going
It's 8 seconds. So with the speech that I just gave you, you've probably lost that 70, 80, 90 times if you're going by that. So, or that's the least of the tension. And then actually there's other research that has looked back to the 90s, the 2000s, and now 2010s, that empathy has actually, unfortunately, declined among college students, which we know is crucial if you want to be honest with yourself with human relations. You know, if you're going to be a husband, or you're going to be a father, or you're going to be an uncle, or whatever it is, or you're going to be a son, or you're going to continue to do that. And just to finish this off, it's a little blunt, but psychologist Catherine Steiner Adair states that mobile phone use, quote, is the worst possible training ground for anyone aspiring to a mature, loving, and sensitive relationship. That's it.